So welcome to another episode of Rat's Nest, where I'm always getting surprised by this thing. I did get my bumper basically together. I still got a lot of work I want to do to the sides, but it is functioning right now. So I put a Warren VR Series winch on here. I wanted something nice, small, lightweight, quick, fast, and easy to work. And obviously I went with the Freedom winch line. So yeah, Barnes did a great job of making those products that I could weld together really easy, and made this bumper install, my DIY bumper, very easy to do. So let's get around to the back here and I'll show you what we're going to do today. So if you guys follow our social media, then you know I was asking what to do with all my extra metal, because I don't want to throw it away. It's not really scrap per se, because I live really far from a metal shop and I need what I have. And I actually ended up taking Faye Hadley's advice. If you guys watch Pistons and Pixie Dust, she said put them in buckets. So that's what I did. I put the small pieces in little 5-gallon buckets that I got from Ace Hardware, and then put my longer pieces up on a shelf, and was able to secure a whole half side of my shelf and be a little more organized when I'm looking for parts. So if you guys got a way to organize this differently or better than the way I did it, let me know, because I think organizing extra scrap steel when they're like short pieces, and I need those short pieces, is really hard to do. I don't think there's a really good way to store it. So if you got one, let me know. So if you guys have been following along, you know that the very last thing I came across was a whole bunch of rust on the inside of this thing. And I do have my metal panels. I did find some metal panels, some replacement panels. I'm going to have to make some too. But I am running low on time, and I got to get this thing done. I really want to get it done for Easter Jeep. And to do that, I got to get my transfer case slip yoke eliminator in so I can get drive shafts made. So I ended up going to Rough Country, and I just bought this off their website, their slip yoke eliminator. And I kind of got a unicorn here, guys. I actually found a brand new, never used Terralo 4-to-1. Now, I know these things kind of have a controversial past. I've had a bunch of these and never had an issue. Now, the one issue that people get is if they say if you over rev it for too long, it'll end up wearing out the bushings. But I am going to put this in. This is something that I did not find. You know, it's not like Terraflex had it secretly on a wall or something like that. I actually found this. This was a Facebook Marketplace score. And I messaged the guy and said, hey man, I'll buy it. And he said, cool, come get it. So I didn't even know one of these existed, especially one brand new that was still floating around. And so I'm going to put it in. I want to put it in. I've had really good luck with them. I've had about 5 of them in different Jeeps. And I've put a bunch in for friends that never had issues with them either. So I think it's all in your driving style. I try to crawl stuff, so you know, I don't really like to keep my foot in things for too long, because I learned my lesson when I was a teenager that when you keep your foot in it, you usually break something anyway. So, and most 231s, when guys were actually building these, a lot of them are going 1 tons and 40s, and a 231 just isn't going to hold up to 1 tons and 40s for very long anyway. So if you're actually going to use it and wheel it hard. Because I have taken off so many 231s, especially in Cherokees and Comanches, I should say, I know exactly what tools I need, and I have my own custom tools. So I have a 1/4-inch drive 9/16, and then I have my bent 9/16. These are the 2 easiest tools to get your 6 bolts off of your transfer case. I have my 8mm to pull off the straps, and I have this little Harbor Freight pry bar, so it'll help me pop that speedometer sensor and the shifter linkage off with ease. So that's all the tools I'm going to need to pull this transfer case out. So for ease of explanation, I'm going to show you guys this on this case half here. This is a 231, and basically it has 6 studs that are sitting in here, and you just have 6 nuts on there, and they're a 9/16 head. So we'll just take the 9/16 studs off. You have 1 linkage you got to pop off, and that's really it. Once you get your drive shafts off, we'll pull the whole case half out, and then we'll set it here on the bench, and we'll take it apart and put it together. You know, I know these things kind of got a bad rap, but I've had good luck with them. I'm going to put it in, and if it works good for me, I'll let you guys know. And if I have any issues, I'll let you guys know. And if we run into issues, we'll see if we can repair it together. So let's get on it. So one of the great things about this Iron Rock kit is it has a skid plate that you put in for the T-case here, but I didn't install it yet because I knew I'd have to take it out to do my slip yoke eliminator. The nice thing about it is the way they designed this, I can actually drop this without dropping my suspension, number 1, but I can actually access all the bolts on this transfer case without even having to pull my cross member. So I can actually pull the transfer case out without having to do it. Now, if I was just doing a slip yoke eliminator, technically I could take it off inside the ground. I could take it off down here. I could actually unbolt the case, take the case in half, and do the slip yoke eliminator down here underneath the Jeep. If you have a lift, a vehicle lift, sometimes that's a lot easier to do it that way. For me, it's just easier to pull the entire case out, especially because I'm gonna put that 4-to-1 in. This right here is the shifter linkage we got to pull out. The speedometer plug, which I can actually just pull off with my fingers if I wanted to. So I don't know what you guys do when you're wrenching in the garage, but I usually either listen to music or listen to podcasts. But I am tearing this T-case apart. So here is a factory 231. This is the slip yoke eliminator. This is a later model, so it at least doesn't slip into the transfer case where it's going to puke oil if you were to break your drive shaft or lose your drive shaft. But these are very small and very weak. The other part is it puts a lot of stress right there on the end of that case. The next part is I also made sure that this transfer case, I went ahead and slid it into the transmission, also measured it, because this spline is actually just a little bit longer than this one. So I wanted to make sure everything was going to fit up good there. So it does, everything fits, everything slides in before I go and tear it all apart. Now when I go to tear it all apart, I've already drained the oil. I'll take the back half of the case off. I got to pull the speedo sensor off, and then the back half of the case off, and then it just splits apart like a sandwich. The biggest issue I've ever seen when people take these apart or put them together is you've got to be careful of the oil pickup tube. There's a pickup tube in here for the pump, and you've got to make sure that you don't break it pulling it apart. But then when you put it back together, you want to make sure you actually get that tube back in and set in there. So that is like the major issue where I've seen these things fail. That, or they didn't tighten up these bolts, or they came loose, and then the case can rattle and then it snaps. I've seen them usually break right about here. One other thing I do like to do is I like to mark the direction at which this speed sensor was lined in, because you can put them in the wrong way where it's not actually grabbing the tooth. So I'm going to go ahead and do that too real quick. Why did you need this special one, Jeep? I need to know. I need to know why all these can be a 15 millimeter head, but this one has to be a 12.10. Anybody know that? Alright, so I got some lunch in me. I feel a lot better now because I was getting a little bit hangry. But while I was in getting lunch, the mailman showed up, and there was a couple of guys that I took four-wheeling last year in the Black Hills. They got a hold of me, and one of the guys that I met that I became friends with was Huggy, and he made salsa, and now he sent it to me. So I'm super stoked on this because this is some good habanero salsa. So thank you, Huggy. The other thing I got, if you guys follow social medias, you'll know that I was on a trail coin. I don't know if you've heard of this company, Trail Coins, but I was on a trail coin for Moab Rim. And then I started collecting some other ones, and they got a whole bunch now. I mean, look at that. They even got that's a 14 bolt diff cover. So kind of a neat deal. They got Trail Hero and, you know, all kinds of different stuff. It's a veteran-owned company. I'll also throw a link down below because we do have a discount code for these if you guys want to buy them in bulk. I need to find some place to hang this where I can actually put them all up on display. So here's basically the back half of the case. This is the part that you'd have to do a slip yoke eliminator. The chain, all you got to do is just slide the front output out, set that off to the side, and now I can pull the chain off, and there it is. Now the one thing, like I was saying before, this is your pump right in here, and then this is your pickup tube right here. And I've seen these fall out, or I've seen these hoses go bad to this filter. So I always make sure the filter's clean, and I make sure that pump's good, and then I usually don't have an issue. Gonna slide this off. We got to turn this like that, and then I can just pull down. Ooh. And there's that pickup tube. So this is the thing you want to be careful of, and the thing that I want to make sure goes back in correctly. This is about the only piece of the case that I'm going to be saving. So the next thing, once again, is just C-clips. And really, the C-clips for these, since we're pulling it off and we're running a different shaft, that it doesn't really matter that I have to worry about protecting them or saving them. So this is the old output. I'm not going to be needing this either. So I can set this off to the side, out of the way. And here is, this right here is the oil pickup pump. So this is what I was talking about. This is actually what is picking up as it's turning, as you're driving. This is actually what's sucking the fluid up and then pushing it out through those gears. So you have to make sure that this is put back in correctly with this, with the tube in the right spot, and then the openings are in the right spot to push the oil back up into that squirrel cage for your low range. Here is the heavy duty slip yoke eliminator output. So not only is it shorter, but you can see how much more girth it has. It is quite a bit stronger. So everything here is the same, basically from here down, and then everything from here up is where it changes. So this is where, this is the weak point of a 231, and then this is what's going to make it strong. Just for fun, I pulled the 4-to-1 out of here just to look at it. I mean, listen to this. So this is brand new, and it's pretty loud. And it's not like there's a bunch of slop in here. There's a tiny bit of play inside the main shaft to the side gears, but the side gears, there's no play in them. Like they got, I mean, they're nice and tight with the bushings. There's also holes in the bushings to get fluid up inside there. What I've heard of people doing is taking this apart. So you actually grind the welds out, take the cover off, and then they drill holes in between the gears here, and that actually allows the fluid in there, and that keeps it from falling apart. All I do, the easiest way I do these cases is I actually set them side by side. I'll pull the pieces out and then set it back in there exactly to match. This is how I usually do a transfer case swap out when I did a 4-to-1. As I'd set it side by side, I pull the two bolts out of the side, and then I can pull the guts out and set them right in, and then put the bolts back in with the shifter linkage. Why I'm still showing this is more so in case you ever are pulling a transfer case apart. You may not have a 4-to-1, but maybe you have to change out a piece, maybe your shift fork's bad, maybe something else. So I'm going to go through just the whole steps here real quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I do want you to see how the case goes together, just so you feel confident if you ever had to pull one apart. But really, it is really, really simple. These cases, I would not feel hard about or just tearing them apart, because that's basically what I did. I haven't had a 231 apart in forever, and I just started pulling it apart. So you don't want to lose anything, so I like to just keep it all together and then set it to the side, just as I pulled it out. Alright, so I got my seal in. I went ahead and put my studs in, and I used Loctite. When I tightened up the studs, I just put a pair of vice grips on the bottom and just snubbed them up. Why does Loctite, red Loctite, it smells like cherries? Like if I was a kid, I would be trying to eat it like the kids that ate glue. I don't know why kids ate glue, because glue does not smell good, but Loctite does. So it's a good thing they don't have Loctite in elementary schools. But if you guys know why it smells like that, let me know, because I'd actually be kind of curious. So the other thing I got to put on here is this seal, and this seal is going to keep the transmission fluid, that pump is pumping it up into this bearing. So it's very important that this groove right here fits on this hole. So there's a fifth hole, and that's where that fluid is working through the bearing and then through there. So you want to make sure that that's able to do that. Otherwise, it's going to blow the seal out, or you're not going to get fluid into this bearing and up into your squirrel cage for that for low, and that is exactly one of the issues that I've seen happen. In that case, I am not going to use just the cheaper ultra gray like I use on a seal. I am going to use the right stuff. If you guys have ever used this, I know it's expensive, but it is, and I just dropped the top, but this is the best stuff you can get when you're sealing things up, and especially when it comes to transmissions. Transmission fluid is real thin, so it likes to work its way out of stuff, and I don't like having leaks. Like I said, if I'm working on it, I don't want it to leak. So this has been the best stuff I've ever used on differentials, transfer cases, anything else, is I'll spend the extra money and buy one of these, and I could have probably bought 4 of these for the cost of this little tube, but but this will make sure that it doesn't leak. As long as your surfaces are clean and dry, this stuff's going to work. So that's what we're going to do now is I'm going to seal this up, and then we will mount that on there. And it isn't going to take much because I am just going to run it up with my finger here. So that's all I needed there. And then I like to just do this anytime I'm doing a seal. And that way it I'm already flattening it out for me so that I know that it's covering. Because sometimes if you're to put it on and you put it on sideways, it may just squish it all inward or just squish it all outward. And you never know what you're actually getting. So if I do it with my fingers, then I've already created that gasket. The downside to this is if you ever have to pull this off, you're going to be cleaning up for a little while. So it is a tougher gasket sealer to clean up. The oil pump slides on here. I do like to hit this seal with just the tiniest, and I do mean tiniest, bit of grease here, because I want that oil to actually get picked up in the pump and put in there. But I also don't want to get grease in the pump itself when I put it on. So it just sits on just like that. So here's the one crucial thing that I was talking about. So here again is that oil pump, and here is the pickup for it. And I sprayed it out real good, cleaned it out with some WD degreaser, and made sure this hose is good, this little rubber part in between. And then right here where this end sits is an O-ring, and it's real crucial to make sure that O-ring is still in there in the bottom of that pump. And once you make sure that O-ring's in there, then you just got to make sure that you can pop it in as you're setting the case half on. And you just got to be real careful and make sure it's in. That's a super important part. Once you get that in, you're good to go. Now we have that oil pickup tube in here. I like to give it a little bump just to make sure that it's in all the way. Stick this in there and just kind of push that metal rim in, just so that I know that that oil pump's in there all the way. So now I'll go ahead and put the clip on, put the Speedo back on, and the other clip. We'll zip all these on, and we'll be ready to put this case back in before you know it. So here's my brand new yoke. Anytime I'm putting any yoke on, differential or transfer case or anything else, I like to always run a thin layer of grease on it. I want to make sure that its startup is good and I don't have a leak. So real quick here, now that I got my slip yoke eliminator in, I'm going to measure for my drive shafts. Now this is how I do it, and I've always had good luck. I don't know if this is the actual proper way, but I always do center U-joint to center U-joint, which is the face of the yoke, basically, the face of this yoke, right here where it bolts up. So I go from, and I set my yokes on the transfer case and on the differential transverse this way, and I will measure from the top to the top up here. And that's, I have 35 1/4, and then I measure the bottom to the bottom, and I have 35. So what I do is I split the difference. That's 35 1/8. So I'm going to call them up and tell them that I want a 35 1/8 center U-joint to center U-joint on my double cardan drive shaft, and I would like it in a 120 wall mid slip yoke, and I will give those numbers to Adam's drive shaft. And the reason I'm going to go with Adam's drive shaft, if you guys don't know James or you haven't met with him or heard of them, they are one of the best drive shaft companies in the business and one of the kindest guys you could deal with. And he actually cares a lot about us and the off-road community. So with that being said, that's who I'm going to use, Adam's drive shaft, and I'm going to ask for the 35 1/8. So I'll go ahead and measure the front and then get those numbers off to them. All right, so one other thing I wanted to mention real quick is how I'm ordering my U-joints, because I'm doing all 1310 U-joints. If you don't understand what that is the size of the U-joint. And here is a Dana Spicer measuring tool. You can get a hold of them for these Spicer measuring tools, but basically what it does is it tells me right here, right there, I put it inside where the cap sits, it's 1310. If it's bigger, it's 1350 or 1330 and 1410 and so on. So that is how I know exactly what U-joint size I'm using. So if you don't have one of these tools, I would suggest checking it out, seeing if you can find one. I know you can find these online and stuff for pretty, like, really cheap. It's just a little piece of plastic. Now, if I was going big 40-inch tall tires or bigger, then I would probably want to step up. But with that being said too, I use the snot out of my Samurai, and all I run is tiny little Toyota joints, so in my drive shaft. So you know, it all kind of depends on, like I said, your driving style, the motor you have in front of it, all your torques, and how heavy your foot is. So anyway, I'm running 1310 front and back, and that way all my stuff is interchangeable, as far as I only have to carry one drive shaft U-joint if I have one go bad. So one of the things I mentioned in the last video is my Pitman arm was too short. I had the stock one, and I got this one. I just bought it from Poly Performance. It was like 15 bucks. I don't know how they can afford to make it that cheap. Maybe they messed up, but they sold it to me for that price. Thanks, Poly Performance. But either way, this one just happens to be just that 3/4 of an inch longer that I need, so it lines up with my track bar. So if you can see here, you can see that my drag link is higher than my track bar, and when I put that on, that's going to make it lower. Now, unfortunately, I have run out of time for this video. If you guys want to see how to do that, or how I do that, I will definitely add it in the video, but you gotta let me know. So let me know and I'll add it into the next video. If not, I'm just gonna throw it on and we're gonna get back to doing stuff, because I gotta get this thing done. But I appreciate you guys watching, and I thank you for following along in this build and following along in our lives. I hope to see you guys again soon. Bye. So in case you guys wonder what I do on my downtime, it's working on other vehicles that I have. So this is my beater with the heater basically, and the starter went out on it. And in case you're wondering where our starter is on a 97 Oldsmobile Aurora, it's right there. Starters under intakes are dumb. If there's any engineers watching this, it's dumb. Dumb. Stop it. Stop it.